Can you tell me where it came from? Thank you.
This baby belongs to them cloners. What you got here is a Kamino saber dart.
I wonder why it didn't show up in the analysis archives.
You see funny little cuts on the side that give it away. Those analysis droids only focus on symbols. I should think that you Jedi would have more respect for the difference between knowledge and wisdom.
Well, if droids could think, there'd be none of us here, would there? Kamino, I'm not familiar with it. Is it in the Republic?
No, it's beyond the Outer Rim. I'd say about 12 parsecs outside the Rishi Maze. Should be easy to find, even for those droids in your archives. These Kaminoans keep to themselves. They're cloners. Damn good ones, too.
Cloners? Are they friendly?
Oh, it depends.
Depends on what, Dex?
On how good your manners are. How big your pocketbook is.
2002's Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, introduced the Kaminoans, a civilization skilled at cloning. Like many skilled at developing specific technologies, the cloners of Kamino didn't spend much time thinking about the impacts of their work. They were skilled at genetic engineering, and they found customers willing to pay for those skills. Today, cloning people is still taboo, but cloning voices, faces, and video imagery of people is big business. Despite the glut of customers willing to pay for these new technologies, questions regarding the ethics and long-term impacts of them remain unanswered. While I didn't head to the Outer Rim for this conversation, I did enlist the help of Luke Jamieson, who lives 9,000 miles away from me. Luke is a global thought leader on the topics of EX, CX, and the future of work. He joins me to discuss the key factor impacting AI adoption, the role of AI in contact centers, evolving communication preferences of customers, potential security risks of voice biometrics, and the future of customer service. Let's get to it.
Welcome to Next in Queue, the podcast for contact center and customer experience professionals. Next in Queue is brought to you by Happy 2 Vision. Eliminate blind spots and see right through every conversation with Happy 2 Vision. Learn more at happitu.com. Now, here's your host, Rob Dwyer.
Luke Jamieson, you are next in queue. Thanks for joining the show again. It's been too long. How have you been, my CX brother from down under?
G'day, Rob. It's so bloody good to be back here. Looking forward to talking all things Australia, CX and AI with you, mate.
What do you think, Luke? Should we let the audience in on our little secret?
Rob, are you referring to the fact that something like me is not actually me?
Yeah, that's the big secret. But I have the real Luke Jamieson here with me, and I'm excited to talk to you about all kinds of fun AI stuff. Luke, how are you?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
I mean, I am much better than that recording, but I will say it's a little creepy. It's creepy enough hearing your own voice, right? So you and I have done all kinds of video content. We hear our own voices. I'm sure you have the same reaction that I have. It's just like, you don't really like that. It's weirder when you hear your own voice and it's not actually your own voice. How did you first react when you heard your own voice cloned?
It was uncanny how accurate it was, and it's scary. And I think when I first created the clone, the thoughts that ran through my head were, do you really want to give away your voice to a third party and create this clone, and I'll talk about some of the stories I've done with that clone since. But then I realized that, hey, I'm on a podcast every other week, and if anyone wants my voice, then it's out there. So, too late. But no, this is the real me, and you can tell because as they say, you don't work with animals or children. And I've got a dog on my lap who is excited that I just got home after dropping the kids off at school, and it was. I rushed in, so this is real. There was no 1 hour prep beforehand, get myself ready. It was drop the kids off, haul ass back here to get on the podcast. So you've got the real me, I promise.
Not even your kids will love you as much as that dog does, I guarantee you.
I'm not sure, but mate, I have a cracking story for you. And I know this has got nothing to do with this episode, other than maybe it's just trying to be as authentic as possible. But I know last time when I was on the podcast, we talked a bit about like Australia and animals, and how there's this assumption that there's just kangaroos everywhere, kind of thing.
Oh no!
I'm not joking you. I'm just coming up the road. I'm about a block away from my house, and a kangaroo jumps out in front of the car, and then goes into the petrol station or the gas station, and just hops into the gas station. And I've just like hit the brakes, grabbed the phone, quickly caught a video of it. So I will send you the video so you can see it's real. But a kangaroo kangaroos everywhere here, mate. It's just, that's how it is.
I don't think I've ever had a better anecdote told on this podcast than the fact that this just happened is maybe my favorite thing of the week.
There you go. So it's real. Kangaroos are everywhere in Australia, mate. They just hanging around the gas station, and
I don't know how I would react to that, but I have a feeling I would. I would probably do what you did. I would probably record the whole thing and then think afterwards, that was really dumb, because who knows what could have happened.
Exactly. But it was, great. It was just, so perfect timing. I thought, you know what a great story to kick off a podcast about, just the difference between real and authentic versus this generated fake versions of ourselves.
So I'm curious, are we going to be able to tell for sure that this video is real and not generated by AI?
I think so for now. There's some interesting stuff happening even on the video side of things, right? We're seeing deep fakes left, right, and center, and it's pretty good. It's pretty good, but hey, look, as big as my ego can get, I just don't think that you and I are just that famous yet that people are deep faking us other than ourselves.
No one's deep faking us. That's for certain. I don't think anyone really cares that much. I am curious, though. Obviously, we're still in the early stages, I think, of what we are going to see from AI.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it's been all the rage for the last year and a half, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's still incredibly early. Based off of what you've seen, what are the implications, or what could you possibly see as it relates to customer experience with AI? I mean, there are all kinds of things that are out there today. Mm-hmm. But just go wild. What could happen?
Let me tell you a real story that happened to me recently about, so not just what could happen, what is happening. I received, so I was on Instagram scrolling, and I see this book come up. Someone's like, a free book, and I was like, sure, why not? Let's get it. Plugged in my details, book arrives in the mail, and I'm thinking, obviously nothing comes for free. And so I wasn't super surprised when I then get a phone call, a couple of weeks later saying, hey, calling from X company, and did you get the book? And I'm like, yep, got the book, haven't read it yet. We go through this dialogue. He then, the guy on the end of the phone, and he's got, I'm hearing contacts and a noise in the background. There's natural pauses, ahs. Totally feels real. And you know me, I've got like 15, 20 years experience in contact centers. So,
Right.
you'd think I'd know what I'm talking about. Anyway, we get to the point where it's like, hey, well, we can actually help your business. And would it be good to book in a time with one of our consultants? I'm like, sure, whatever, why not? I'm free at 1:00 tomorrow. And then it comes back and the person says, are you free at 3 p.m. on Friday? And I'm like, no, I'm free at 1:00 tomorrow. Are you free at 4 p.m. tomorrow? And I was like, are you listening? Like, no, I can do 1:00 tomorrow. Keeps offering these things. I end up going, are you a bot? And I thought the response was epic. The response was, haha, do I really sound that bad? And I said, well, yes, are you a bot? And then it came clean. Yes, I'm a virtual assistant, but the people in our business are real, and we can still help you with your business. It was so good, Rob. It was so good. It had me fooled. And the contact center noise and the fake contact center noise in the background, I was like, wow, this is just epic. And look, I felt the problem is I actually thought it was really good, and I don't know if I would have done anything differently if I knew it was automated and Gen AI. Because I think just out of curiosity, right, and more than anything, I would have been like, oh, let's see how this goes. But it was the fact that I didn't know. It was the fact that I felt like scammed or hoodwinked, or they'd pulled the wool over my eyes, that I was so upset about it. I was like, for someone who's got so much experience in contact centers, I should have been able to figure that out, and I couldn't. It was just so good, and that's when I felt disappointed. And I think that that'll be one of the questions that comes up with all of this, particularly from a contact center perspective, is disclosure. What are we? How are we going to tell people? How clean are we going to be on our transparency when it comes to, are we using AI or not? So there's definitely a use case. I know this is a great use case. I think outbound calls that are happening over and over and over again kind of makes sense. They're hard work. If it's just booking appointments, I see no reason why you can't use it. And Google came out with their, was it Duplex a few years ago, and I think that shocked everyone. I think everyone thought, it's manufactured, it's not real. It's real. It happens. So, look, I think that's definitely one implication, is that feeling of trust. So, the building of trust, and I think trust comes from two things. It comes from a sense of autonomy and control. So you've got control over that situation, and confidence in the product, in the person you're speaking with. And if you don't have one of those, you start to erode that trust. So, yeah.
So a couple of things hit me about this. I had a conversation up in almost a year ago at a trade show, and we were talking about what was going to stop virtual assistants, virtual agents from becoming more and more prevalent. And my gut said it's going to be pushback from consumers. And you certainly feeling that, right? I got tricked. I think that feeling is one that we're going to have to get past before consumers don't have a negative reaction to it. But I do wonder how long it will take before we do trust that virtual agent the same way that I trust, for instance, Google Maps. And I will tell you, like, for the most part, when I'm driving and I've got Google Maps navigating for me, even when it goes, because I've learned my lesson, when it says, hey, you need to get off the highway right now. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And then I turn the corner after I miss the exit. And I'm like, oh, well, that's why there's a traffic pile up, crack or something. And now I'm going to be stuck here for 20 minutes going nowhere. And so now I pay attention to that, and I put more trust into it than I did 5 years ago.
Yeah, it's interesting. Trust is going to be it's I've been wrestling with this as a conundrum, right, around trust and AI, because when we talk about trust with a third party, the company or something like that, I think sometimes we overvalue it. And I'll give you an example. So you just talked about Google. So you've got a Google account, you've got YouTube, you've got a Twitter, and if that's what it's still called, or Zeta, I don't know. You've got these social media platforms, right?
Yeah.
Do you trust them with your data?
It's a great question, because I can tell you that while I don't implicitly trust my head, my actions say I do, because I've given them my data. Right?
Exactly right. So I don't trust them. Not at all. I know that when I mention a jet ski in passing conversation, it's going to end up in my feed somewhere, right? So, and I've done tests on this. You just sit there and start saying shoelaces 4 times over, and all of a sudden you start getting like the most random things start getting advertised to you. I don't trust them at all. Yet I am happy to give all this information because of the service I get back. And so there is a trade-off between the service we provide in customer experience, customer service, versus that level of trust that somebody's willing to give that stuff up for. So I'm still wrestling with it. I don't have an answer to it, because, but I think that's our first thing. We're like, oh, we don't trust these AI bots or whatever. I don't think that's going to be the driving force behind it all in the future. I don't think it's going to be cost driven either. I think that's one of the first things people think about. It's like, oh, where can we save money? I don't think it's going to be that. I think it's going to be around how do we enhance the opportunity? How do we enhance the service? And how do we make the lives of humans better? And I think that smart companies are going to realize that, and realize that the saving on time within an employee's workday could be spent on achieving the greater mission that the company initially set out for. And I think that's where the real value comes from. And it's not just for the company, but then for the employee, because then the employee is doing work that is meaningful, has impact, is aligned with the mission, is aligned with their purpose. So I think there's a lot of good that can come from this if we apply it correctly and with the right intent. Look, we'll talk it. I'm going to go down a rabbit hole on this, mate. You know me. I'll talk for ages on this stuff. But I think we're about to really shake up some social norms on a lot of things. And like, I think the 8-hour workday could be at a real risk, which I'm totally happy about. I think that if we can use AI to reduce the amount of time that we have to work, who said that? That we had to have an 8-hour day. Like, I know unions kind of had a big part of that. 8 hours work, 8 hours play, 8 hours sleep. Why can't we just do 4 hours? And spend more time with our family. Who said it had to be 8, 8, 8? Let's mix it up. So I think there's some cool stuff that could come from all of this.
One of the things,
mate, as always, losing track of what the question was.
It's fine. One of the things that I have worried about for a while, and I think I've changed my mind on this. But I really thought one of the problems, and it is a problem, don't get me wrong, but the way I view it is a little bit different today. My thoughts on what happens when AI gives you the wrong information, right? And we've seen this. We've seen big news stories about an airline, about a car dealership, and AI essentially giving out misinformation, and then the fallout that comes from that. Some of that fallout is just bad press. In one case, it was actually going to court and losing. But, and this is the big but, humans mess up too. I mean, humans give wrong information when you call a contact center. Like, agents are wrong sometimes. And agents are wrong sometimes in big ways. And so I don't know that companies are going to look at how error prone AI is as a determining factor of whether or not we're going to rely on AI realm of customer experience from an agent perspective, right? Customer service or sales or whatever. What I do wonder, though, is we as humans like to hold people accountable to mistakes. And will companies worry about how do we hold AI accountable when it messes up? What does that look like? I don't know the answer to that. What are your thoughts on that?
You're right. Humans mess up, but what happens? So what happens now when a human messes up? I think back to when I'm running contact centers and an agent messes up. You know, we're not. I think good employers don't sit there and just walk them out the door, right? Unless it's malicious. What's the first thing you do? You put them into training. How do we better mitigate this situation? I think it's going to be a similar thing. We train the AI better, and I think we're going to see. Yeah, I've seen those stories too, right? And it's good. It's a good story when AI says the wrong thing and we can and someone makes money out of it. I've worked for organizations where we've given incorrect unit prices on shares and things like that, and we've had to pay out money. I've seen it hundreds of times. It's going to happen with AI, but I think the interesting thing is where some of that technology is going. So I think our initial fear around Gen AI comes from the fact that a lot of these early models, right, these ChatGPT, etc., are just trawling the web, and the size of the data source that it's searching from is just it's hard to fathom, and so it could come back with anything. And so, but what we're seeing now is this real shift in how do you set some guidelines around it? Where's the parameters? And so I don't know if you've heard of RAG, RAG, retrieval augmented generation. Okay, good. So knowledge management systems, they're really good at retrieval. Great, brings you back the right piece of information, but is it personalized? No, it's the same thing for everyone. Gen AI, great at personalization, not so accurate. You know, I Gen AI, I chat GPT'd myself out of curiosity to see what it came up with, and mate, I have won some pretty epic awards. I tell you, I didn't realize I was in the Forbes fastest 1,000. It's pretty cool.
I could have told you that. You didn't ask me. I would have.
I just wish Forbes had told me
all the amazing things that you've done. All of them.
But yeah, so it, you know, it got some stuff right. Like, it got some stuff around like my passion for employee and customer experience. It got some stuff right about my work in gamification. But then the awards just started going ballistic, and so we know it's not accurate. It makes stuff up, hallucinations. And so when we combine those two things together, though, when we combine with RAG, retrieval and augmented generation, you start to get really accurate and personalized stuff. So it's not even, we'll call it small language models, not large language models, that we're starting to contain this data, and it's pretty clever stuff. So So I think we'll see less and less errors coming from stuff like this. And I think that this is a good thing for the contact center, because I think for the most part, one of the, when we talk about, contact center roles, we talk about them as stepping stone roles or entry level roles. And yet the whole industry sits there and complains about why the churn rate's so high in contact centers. And it's because that's what we advertise them for, right? We advertise them as stepping stone roles, and then we're surprised that people are moving on 12 months later. I think what this does is it starts to shift the parameters of what is what a contact center agent does. And what's going to happen is that a lot of that low hanging fruit, that easy stuff, is going to be handled by AI, and that just leaves the meaty stuff. It leaves that connection that we need to have, that human to human connection. And we can chat a bit about the importance of that as well if you want. But this idea that contact center, like call center, customer service people, that their role is going to be more meaningful and have more impact, I think that's good for everyone. It starts to put a lot more value around that role. I think we'll start to see that contact center role as a white glove service, and I think that that's good for the industry. I don't think people are going to go away, and I think that there's a reason for that, and that is that we have a desire to have connection, and we do want to connect with people, and so there's always going to be that need. So I think I could talk about some of the stats. There was a State of the Nation report that happened last year in Australia, and it said that 1 in 3 Australians are lonely, and that to me is a shocking statistic that says that we are. Doesn't, and it didn't matter whether you were a male, female, whether you were part of a large family, whether it didn't matter. There was just this feeling of loneliness, and I think things like TikTok and social media and automation has a lot to answer for when it comes to that, because it's provided this barrier to us connecting with people. And some generations are actually getting used to this. So I hosted a couple of roundtables recently where it's a similar topic, talking about automation and AI handling queries. And there was a real obvious divide in the room. Now, probably giving away my age, but sort of that Gen X upwards were very keen would rather talk to a human. Frustrated by the thought of talking with a bot. That having a chat bot is just one more hurdle to get over before I really just get to speak to a person. Yet, sort of that Gen Y and I'll say below were really were on the other side. They'd rather not speak to a human. And when I sort of dived into that, it was like, so talk to me. Why is that? Why would you not want to speak to someone real? And they're like, it just causes too much anxiety and too much pressure. And I was just like, wow, that's a real shift. So I think that could play into some of that adoption as well.
I think there's something about the communication channels changing at that kind of inflection point that you're talking about with generations, right? It's when texting and instant messaging kind of took over the ecosystem of being able to communicate with your friends, with your family. Mm-hmm. I know my kids definitely prefer often that instant message, the texting, that kind of thing, that the sometimes just even asynchronous, right? So it might be a video like Snapchat, mm-hmm. but it's not synchronous. You're not on a call. And certainly when you talk about that anxiety of having to talk to a live human being, that is a very real thing for some people that I know that are that are younger than me. And so I think there is something there.
Yeah.
And it
One of my
may
mates, he's
be
like,
that.
I was going to say, one of my mates, he's like 20 years younger than me. His voicemail messages, if you're thinking of leaving a message, it means you're old. I'm not going to listen to it. Just text me. It's hilarious.
I think there's a commercial here in the States for one of the insurance companies that's talking about being like your parents. And the bit, if you will, is, should they leave a voicemail? And the answer is no, you just text them. Like that's the answer. You brought up something that I want to get. I don't know if you've heard about this, but I want to get your gut reaction. You brought up TikTok. Did you know that in the Android app, it's not live yet, but voice cloning is, there's an option for voice cloning in TikTok. And we started out the episode with cloned voices. We kind of talked about, our voices being out there. Do you have any concerns about TikTok and voice cloning, or what do you think about that? What's your gut?
Look, I'm not on TikTok, but it does concern me a little bit, just around some of the moves that organizations are taking around voice biometrics being your password. And there's a telco here, an internet service provider here, that you can say my voice is my password. At ... company, my voice is my password. And I was curious as to whether my voice clone would work. And so I created, knowing that was what it was, I created the voice clone and then called them, and I played it right next to it, and I got through. And so that scares me. All right. Mm-hmm. I immediately turned that function off as something that no longer is the way that I will authenticate. And I'm seeing government organizations here talking about it. I was at a conference recently, and they're up on stage and they're talking about how they're introducing this and this is their next big thing. And yeah, so that scares me, particularly government, because we've got everything with them, right? And so yeah, I've got massive concerns around that. I've got I don't know. Did you see this week that no, I'm a big country music fan, but I did see this on the news, so I'm caveating that with country music because I don't want to be associated with the fact that I know anything about Drake. But Drake put out a song, right? He put out this song this week where he's just basically trashing another artist and having a dig at them. But he had Tupac and Snoop Dogg on the track, but it wasn't them. It was just voice cloned, and he just introduced that into his track. There's so much to unpack here, from just what is socially acceptable around this stuff, so it scares me. There's some cool stuff that we can do with it. I've put my voice clone into like songs, and all of a sudden I can sing really well, which is great. So I'm all for that.
I need to try that, because that's a skill I do not have. So thanks for turning me on to that.
Yeah, there's some fun stuff to be had with it. What's the benefit though? I've got to think about what is the benefit. And I do use automated voice on a pretty regular basis now. So when I create a lot of product videos, and not everyone wants to hear my thick Aussie accent. So so I use things like what we use to generate our intro. I use tools like that to create use other accents, so the product video has an American accent over it, or a British accent. So I think there's some real benefit in it, but yeah, it's.
I think I need to tell you about two things that you are very wrong about. The first thing that you are very wrong about is saying that not everyone wants to hear your thick Aussie accent. That's a lie. I'm just going to tell you right now, I'm quite confident that that is a lie and not true. The second thing is you mentioned ChatGPT hallucinating about you. And I think what it was really doing was fortune telling for you. And so you're getting these things mixed up. So I just wanted to make clear that I see some things that you're saying that are not true. And I am not the kind of podcast host to just let that kind of thing slide.
I love it, Rob. Thanks, mate. And Forbes, watch out. Here I come.
So you've hit on a lot of really intriguing things, but I love that you talk about the purpose. And I think this is something that we've seen this in the past with some silly things that you could do on Facebook, and then that data ended up getting scraped from Facebook without users' knowledge. And Cambridge Analytica was using this to target people and influence how they voted. I think people should think about all of these AI solutions potentially when they're giving their data and considering, like, what is the end goal? What good am I doing here? What is this going to help me accomplish or my organization accomplish before you go into it? Because I guarantee you, 99.9% of people are not reading the terms of service.
Oh, no.
They are not understanding really what kind of contract they're entering into, because they are, in fact, entering into a contract that is legally binding, and they have no idea what's going to happen with that data.
There's a lot of first children just getting lost, just getting signed over.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. There are plenty of firstborns that are not actually yours.
Yeah, that's right. Facebook owns them now.
But you didn't read the contract, right? You entered into it.
Yeah, it reminds me. Irrelevant, but it's a good joke. I think it's a James Franco joke. He says, he starts whispering to his wife, and his wife says, "Why are you whispering?" And he says, because I don't want Mark Zuckerberg to hear." And his wife laughed, and Siri laughed, and Alexa laughed. So, slightly off topic, but I just,
Yeah. We are always being listened to. And to your point, and I think most of us have experienced this, right? We get served up ads based off of conversations that we're having. And it can be a really eerie kind of thing. But at least that's an ad that I can ignore. And I could be like, well, okay, unless it's something really weird that I don't really want to be associated with. That was the result of some weird conversation that I was having. Yeah. When it comes to AI, though, I could be potentially signing away the right to use my image or my likeness or my voice. And this was something that we actually talked about on a recent episode. Kent Morita joined the show, and he talked about how he licensed his likeness to a video game that just came out. And that particular contract allows that company to use their likeness, his likeness, however they want, in whatever they want. And he at least knew what he was getting into because he was getting paid for that. But a lot of these services, you're setting it up for free. You're logging in, and then you're giving data, and you don't really know what the long-term consequences are. They may be nothing, or they could be something much more serious down the road.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, the worst case with me signing over my my voice is that, your Roomba is going to be going around your house going, "Oh, mate, your bloody house is a bit dirty, eh?" But there is that we are knowingly or unknowingly training the future of AI, right? And I heard that interesting. I thought this is interesting. I don't know how true it is, but it could just be a massive conspiracy theory. But a lot of the capture where you have to say, identify stairs. But all that data is just getting fed to AI for the future, like so that it can identify what is that image, right? So I wouldn't be surprised. I
wouldn't either. I do want to talk about something that you touched on earlier, and that is this idea of white glove service with human beings. Do you think that the future differentiator from a brand experience is going to be that, yes, I can talk to a human? Frontier Airlines is a great example, right? A year or so ago, they eliminated their customer support via phone. You can't call them today. And they're a budget airline. I don't know how much money they saved on that, but I imagine they saved quite a bit. They certainly haven't turned around on that. Is that going to be the luxury customer service for brands, do you think?
I think so. Yeah, I think it is. And I think that's, I think it's an exciting time to be in that customer service space because of that. You start to, I think that's, it starts to put some real value around the role, which I think is a good thing. Will there be a lot of roles lost? Probably. That's, I think that's inevitable. And it's a little bit sad, and you know what? There'll be some impact, some big impact, particularly in some of these countries that a lot of BPOs are, outsourced to and use, a cheaper labor to achieve that. So I worry about those regions for sure. But yeah, I think it is. I think it's going to be white glove. It's going to be the differentiator between a run-of-the-mill brand and a luxury brand. Speak to a real person who actually cares and wants to converse with you. And I like the idea of it. I think it's a good thing.
You just said a word that popped up in an article I wrote recently, and that was care. I really do think that is going to be one of the things that brands have to focus on, is hiring people who care about the brand, who care about the customers, and who are really proud of the work they're doing. You mentioned that, right? That kind of serving a purpose and aligning with the mission, the vision, the values of the company that they're working for. And I think that's where you will see customer service really soar, when you have people working for your company, representing your company, that really care about it.
Yeah, I agree. And look, I think AI is going to help that too, right? I think it's going to be the future of a customer service agent is going to be augmented, and they're going to have AI serving up sort of next best actions and maybe even empathetic statements to help them move through what might be a very challenging conversation. And I like that too, because what it does is it takes away some of that cognitive load that we put on ourselves as agents to, and we're so focused on the process and getting it right, and make sure you security check them and don't say and say their name 3 times on a call, and don't forget to offer further assistance, and make sure you've ticked all these boxes from a corrective. All that kind of goes away. And what you're left with is this raw interaction where you can connect with somebody and feel what's happening, and be, feel that just that deep connection where there's, empathy, sympathy, all of these emotions that we forget simply because because we're so focused on the tasks. And so I think that there's some real benefit that's going to happen in that space too. I think the future of customer service is definitely augmented.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I think AI can really help with a lot of the tedious tasks that happen that are to-dos on a checklist, as opposed to the things that actually impact the business or impact the experience or impact agent performance.
Yeah.
We're going to see those things continue to be augmented or taken over by AI. And in many ways, that will also make the job of your frontline supervisor simpler, because I can focus on coaching instead of all these other tedious things that get in the way of helping my agents be successful in everything they do when they come to work every day. And ultimately, I think everyone wants to be successful at work. So the more that we can provide them the tools to help them do that, I think the better off everyone will be.
I also hope it takes away some of the rubbish that humans have to deal with, like so I'll give an example. There's particularly like social media. There is people out there sitting in like a customer service call center type role that are looking at content and filtering content before it hits these platforms. And they are seeing the worst of humanity. I was engaged a couple of years ago to help an organization that was the frontline agents. That was their job, was to filter content, and they had surprisingly really low employee engagement. And they were looking to, can we use gamification to help drive employee engagement? And I ended up walking away because I was like, there is no gamification, there is no employee engagement that is going to fix the trauma that these people are seeing day in and day out. And these agents were leaving. No, you can't. And 3 months later, they're leaving and they've all got PTSD. And, so I hope to see some of this AI that is image recognition, video recognition, to be able to filter out some of the worst of humanity so that we don't have to subject humans to that sort of thing. So that's where I see some real benefit in some of these things, because when we start to lose our humanity around these things, and when we start to desensitize ourselves to some of this content, that is not good for anybody. So there is definitely some good to be had with the speed in which AI is developing. Yeah. But look, I think through all of it, the key message I think is that we need to keep humans in the loop. Right? They can't disappear in that customer service space, because ultimately we want to connect. There is a deep desire within our DNA to connect. It's how we survived. When we were just learning to stand upright, is that we all just get together and we look after each other. And I think that the more we can do that, the better our society is going to be.
I love that message. I am on board with it. And I think if we learned anything during COVID, that's one of the things that we learned, was how important it was to be connected, to find new ways to be connected when we were physically separated from our friends and our family. And I don't think AI is going to change that. So it's still important to make that connection. And speaking of, kind of glad I connected with you again.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for not only being on the show, but getting live kangaroo footage, for coming in straight after dropping the kids off, for joining with man's best friend on your lap. These are all major accomplishments, and there's probably going to be a Forbes article about them in a couple of hours after we go live.
I love that. I love it.
Luke Jamieson, thank you so much for being next in queue. I really appreciate your time today.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for having me yet again. Appreciate it. It's been, fun, as always.
Next in Queue is brought to you by Happy To and is produced by me, Rob Dwyer. If you enjoy this podcast, please by all means subscribe and or rate this podcast in iTunes or your favorite podcast app. But more importantly, please tell just one person about this podcast. Word of mouth is the best way for people to discover new content. As always, thanks for listening.